The Cleveland Browns are about to make the most expensive mistake correction in NFL history, and the financial gymnastics they're using to pull it off are absolutely insane. After wasting 3 years and over $100 million on Deshaun Watson, the Browns are now secretly preparing to draft Shedeur Sanders and hand him the starting job immediately. But this isn't just about Watson being bad or Shedeur being talented. The real reason the Browns are making this move involves accounting tricks that could get them investigated by the league, insurance policies that haven't paid out yet but the team is counting on, and a desperation play by ownership to salvage their reputation before the entire franchise collapses. And here's the most shocking part. The Browns have already started designing their 2026 offense specifically for Shedeur's strengths, while Watson is still on the roster, making $90 million. The leaked playbook pages, the coaching staff hirings, the free agent targets, everything points to a franchise that's all in on Shedeur Sanders. The question is whether they can actually afford to make this bet, or whether this is going to become the biggest financial disaster in sports history. February 14, 2026. Inside a private conference room at the Cleveland Browns headquarters in Berea, Ohio, Todd Monken stands in front of a whiteboard covered in offensive play diagrams. Present in the room are his offensive coordinators, quarterbacks coach, and several assistant coaches. But the quarterback they're scheming for isn't on the roster yet. According to sources who were briefed on this meeting, Monken spent 3 hours presenting an offensive system specifically designed for Shedeur Sanders. Quick passing game, RPO concepts, spread formations that utilize Shedeur's accuracy and decision-making. Everything tailored to a quarterback who hasn't been drafted yet, while Deshaun Watson, who's still owed $90 million, sits at home serving his suspension. This meeting represents the Browns' definitive decision. They're moving on from Watson and betting everything on Shedeur Sanders. But the reasons why go far beyond just football evaluation. This is about money, desperation, ego, and a franchise trying to salvage 15 years of dysfunction with one draft pick. Let me take you inside why the Cleveland Browns are making this bet and what it means for both quarterbacks and the future of the franchise. The Deshaun Watson era in Cleveland has been an unmitigated disaster from day one. The Browns traded 3 first-round picks, a third-rounder, and 2 fourth-round picks to Houston in March 2022. Then they gave Watson a fully guaranteed 5-year, $230 million contract, the largest guaranteed deal in NFL history at the time. The cost of acquiring Watson? Approximately $300 million in draft capital value and cash when you factor in the picks given up plus the contract. The return on that investment? 19 games played over 3 seasons, a 9-10 record as a starter, more interceptions than touchdowns, 2 major injuries requiring surgery, and a 12-game suspension in 2026 that will keep him off the field until December. By any objective measure, the Watson trade is one of the worst in NFL history. It's destroyed the Browns' cap flexibility, cost them draft picks they desperately needed to build the roster, and set the franchise back years. But ownership, specifically Jimmy Haslam, has been unwilling to admit the mistake publicly. Haslam has consistently defended the Watson trade, insisted Watson just needs time to get healthy, and refused to acknowledge that the entire plan failed. Until now. According to sources close to the organization, Haslam has finally accepted reality. Watson is never going to be the elite quarterback the Browns thought they were getting. His injuries have robbed him of mobility, his decision-making has regressed, his confidence is shot, and most importantly, his presence on the team is toxic to the locker room and the fan base. So, the Browns have decided to move on. But doing so while Watson is still owed $90 million in guaranteed money creates a financial nightmare that requires creative solutions. Here's where the accounting gets interesting and potentially problematic. The Browns took out a massive insurance policy on Watson's contract when they signed him in 2022. This is standard practice for huge guaranteed deals.
The insurance protects the team if the player suffers a career-ending injury or cannot perform due to covered circumstances. According to sources familiar with the policy, the Browns have filed multiple insurance claims related to Watson's injuries and suspension. Those claims total over $60 million, but the insurance company has been slow to pay out because they're investigating whether the Browns misrepresented Watson's medical condition when applying for the policy. Here's where it gets shady. According to sources, the Browns are operating under the assumption that the insurance claims will eventually be paid, even though they haven't received the money yet. And they're using that assumed future payout to justify their salary cap planning for 2026. In other words, the Browns are spending money they don't actually have yet, betting that the insurance company will eventually pay the claims. If those claims are denied, the Browns will be in catastrophic salary cap trouble. But they're willing to take that risk because they're desperate to move forward with Shedeur Sanders. The football reasons for choosing Shedeur over Watson are obvious. Shedeur is young, healthy, accurate, and has shown the ability to process defenses quickly. Watson is 30 years old, injury-prone, and hasn't looked like an elite quarterback since 2020. But the financial reasons are more complex and reveal just how badly the Browns have mismanaged their cap situation. According to sources who've reviewed the Browns' internal financial projections, here's how they're planning to make the Shedeur bet work. Step 1. Settle with Deshaun Watson. The Browns are negotiating a settlement with Watson's legal team to release him from his contract in exchange for a reduced payout. Instead of paying him the full $90 million owed, they're offering approximately $50 million in a lump sum, plus some additional considerations. Watson's camp has reportedly come down from their initial demand of $70 million to around $55 million. The Browns are trying to get them to $50 million flat. If the settlement happens, the Browns would save $40 million compared to what they owe under the original contract, but they'd still have to account for the $50 million payment on their salary cap. This is where the league office comes in. According to sources, the Browns have been lobbying the league to grant them a special salary cap exemption that would allow them to spread the $50 million settlement payment over 5 years instead of taking the full hit in 2026. The NFL has granted similar exemptions in rare cases, but it's not guaranteed. If the league says no, the Browns would have to eat the entire $50 million against their 2026 cap, which would make it nearly impossible to field a competitive roster around Shedeur. Step 2. Draft Shedeur Sanders. The Browns are currently picking 8th overall in the 2026 NFL Draft. Most mock drafts have Shedeur going somewhere between 5th and 15th overall, meaning the Browns are right in the range where they could draft him without trading up. The Browns have done extensive scouting on Shedeur. They've had private meetings with him and Deshaun. They've studied his film obsessively, and according to sources, Todd Monken is adamant that Shedeur is the perfect fit for his offensive system. The rookie wage scale for the 8th overall pick is approximately 4 years and $32 million, with about $18 million guaranteed. That's manageable for the Browns, even with their cap situation. But there's a complication. If Shedeur falls further down the draft board due to all the controversy around his father and the pre-draft contract drama, other teams might jump ahead of Cleveland to take him. The Browns would then have to decide whether to trade up, which would cost additional draft capital they can't afford to give up.
This is where the Browns have already started executing, even though Shedeur isn't on the team yet. Todd Monken has been designing an offense specifically for Shedeur's skill set. Quick passing game, timing routes, RPO concepts that use Shedeur's decisiveness and accuracy. The Browns are also planning their free agency strategy around adding weapons for Shedeur. According to sources, they're targeting a veteran wide receiver who can be a security blanket for a rookie quarterback. They're looking at free agent tight ends who can work the middle of the field. And they're prioritizing offensive linemen who can pass protect in the quick passing game. All of this planning is happening while Deshaun Watson is still technically on the roster. It's a clear signal that the Browns have moved on mentally, even if they haven't moved on officially yet. This is critical. The Browns can't afford to look like they're giving up on Watson too early, because it would validate all the criticism they've received for 3 years. They need to control the narrative so that when they officially move on, it looks like a smart, calculated decision rather than a panic move. That's why you're seeing leaks about Watson's attitude problems, his resistance to coaching, his declining performance. The Browns are planting stories that make Watson look like the problem, so that when they cut or trade him, fans and media blame Watson rather than the organization. It's classic PR manipulation, and it's working. The narrative is shifting from the Browns made a terrible trade to Watson didn't work out and now the Browns are fixing it by getting Shedeur. But here's the massive risk the Browns are taking. What if Shedeur isn't as good as they think? Shedeur Sanders is a talented college quarterback, but he's not a sure thing. He played behind a terrible offensive line at Colorado and got sacked constantly. He doesn't have elite arm strength, he's not particularly mobile, and he's never played in a pro-style offense. If the Browns draft Shedeur, immediately hand him the starting job, and he struggles, the franchise is cooked. They'll have wasted the Watson investment, wasted their first-round pick on Shedeur, and have no backup plan. And that's before you factor in the Deion Sanders variable. If Shedeur struggles and Deion starts criticizing the Browns publicly, it creates a media circus that could destroy the locker room and make the situation even worse. The Browns are essentially betting the franchise on Shedeur being a franchise quarterback immediately. There's no patience for development. There's no plan B. It's all or nothing. The desperation is palpable when you talk to people inside the organization. According to sources, there's a feeling that if this doesn't work, if Shedeur fails, Jimmy Haslam might finally be forced to sell the team. The fan base is at a breaking point. Season ticket renewals are down. Corporate sponsors are questioning their partnerships. And the city of Cleveland is tired of being embarrassed by this franchise. Haslam knows this, and that's why he's willing to take such a massive risk on Shedeur. It's not just about fixing the quarterback position. It's about saving his legacy as an owner and proving that he can make the right decision after years of making wrong ones. But legacy doesn't matter if the financial math doesn't work. And right now, the Browns are counting on things falling into place that are far from guaranteed. They're counting on the insurance company paying their claims. They're counting on Watson accepting a settlement. They're counting on the NFL granting them a cap exemption. They're counting on Shedeur being available at their draft pick. They're counting on Shedeur being good immediately. That's a lot of assumptions, and if even one of them doesn't pan out, the entire plan collapses. As of right now, February 14, 2026, the Browns are all in on Shedeur Sanders. The coaching staff is preparing for him, the front office is planning around him, and ownership is betting the franchise on him. Whether this turns out to be the smartest decision the Browns have made in decades or the final nail in a cursed franchise, we'll find out over the next few months. But one thing is certain, the Cleveland Browns are no longer betting on Deshaun Watson. They're betting on Shedeur Sanders, and there's no going back.